Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the iTunes Family Podcast. And in this episode, we currently have Teddy Magger from the iTunes Family, which is me.
My name is Alpha DeWolf.
And our other host, Tabby Cat 406 or Tabby Paris. He will be joining us later on for this episode, but currently he has something to do that is going to take quite a long time. But he'll be back later on. But for now on, we have topics to discuss. So our first topic is that the Apple Vision Pro is going to be available on February 2nd.
Well, my latest video just got dated instantly.
Yeah.
I really thought they were going to wait to do it at an event, but I was actually mad at them launching it, not because it's this early. I'm mad at just how they decided to launch this.
Yeah, it's just like Apple did a follow-up event for the iPhone, and I believe they did it for the iPad. They did
this
it for the Apple
product
Watch.
needs an event. It straight up needs an event.
Even it's like we're not the only ones that think Apple Vision Pro has an identity crisis.
Yeah, it's just nope. Why is this important? But I don't like to think of the WWDC event being the event where this was announced and such. That's an event focused on developers, and a lot of the presentation was just explaining the capabilities hardware-wise of this device to developers so they can start developing apps for that.
Yeah.
But in terms of for us, the people buying, the people actually using these products, we don't have a clue of what we're supposed to do with this thing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And because we've gone into the Apple Vision Pro a little bit way too much on this podcast, I guess we shall move on to our next topic, which is some of the products unveiled at CES 2024.
I've not been paying that much attention to it this year. I probably should pay more attention.
I haven't been paying that much attention to it either, but there's some things that I have found that have been announced at that event that I'm actually quite excited for. Like, I know this isn't an appliance podcast, but GE is announcing an indoor smoker which can make really good meat. So that's actually my dad would really like that. So that's cool, but because this is not the TIFP or the otherwise known as the Appliance Fanboy Podcast, I guess we shall.
That's still part of tech, isn't it?
It is still. That's not really the realm of tech that we focus in, but yes, it is technically tech.
Yeah, I've actually been paying attention to. I've been paying attention to CES for actually the wrong reasons.
Why?
For some reason, CES is the time when charging hardware companies like to announce their new hardware. And they all do it at CES.
That's not bad. To be fair, that's actually a great idea.
Yeah, they all do it at CES, which I guess kind of is the perfect place to... Well, I guess they can't fully demonstrate it because, again, some of these machines require like 350 kilowatts of power to demonstrate, and I don't think getting that supply to a building like that would be the easiest thing in the world. I'm still trying to figure out what is that conference in Chicago that at some point we're going to go on a business trip to? It's where they demonstrate a whole bunch of CNC machines, and they actually make the CNC machines that I work with look like weak sauce, but that's not the point. The thing is, yeah, I do think actually announcing charging hardware at CES is a good place to do it. But yeah, that's the only reason why I'm paying attention to CES. I don't even pay attention to the cars there. For me, I'm more interested in the chargers because that's what America needs. We need the chargers.
Yeah. Well, another news is stuff being unveiled at CES 2024. So Sam Time actually made a great video about this that isn't his usual dry humor, which I really appreciate, but it is a video about Samsung and LG unveiling their first fully transparent televisions.
Hmm.
And
The one
which
thing
are
though is I'm not
stupidly,
really sure how useful that is.
yeah, it's not. I mean, you can see stuff through it, so it's cool, but
Yeah, I mean, don't get me
you're
wrong.
talking.
That tech is cool and could be useful, say, in Windows maybe, like you can make smart windows or something like that. I don't know, but
Yeah, however, when you're talking four, sometimes five figures then for these transparent televisions, that's just stupid and unnecessary.
yeah, I really hate the name of CES. It should not be called the Consumer Electronics Show
Yeah,
because half of the stuff they show off there, oh,
like the
those effects. Half the stuff they show off there are concepts
yeah
that'll
that
never make it to customers.
or a lot of stuff that they showed there are failures, like Microsoft's Auto PC, which was unveiled back in 1995. Hint for in the next topic.
Oh dear.
And what a and CES and most of the stuff. Yeah, it's not a consumer. And Apple doesn't even do anything. It's announced anything at CES, mind you. So
Yeah, they pay no attention to that. And that's probably just
like,
because of how Apple likes to announce their stuff. They like to pretend that they are the only tech company in existence when they announce their products, and
yeah,
it's kind of hard to do when you're only a single booth with many other booths in one room. So,
yeah. It's also Apple also likes to unveil their stuff more at events, and they understand. And to be honest, January is simply not a great time to unveil consumer tech because people will have just been kind of drained from spending on Christmas gifts.
true.
And most people,
I mean, I know I'm drained because I put a massive bulk order in for, well, some of the stuff has arrived. I'm waiting on two more items. Yeah, two more items to ship. But yeah, holiday season is when everyone drains the bank accounts.
so as a result, that's actually why. That's as a result, that's why Apple doesn't usually unveil products in the spring and in the winter anyway, because no one's going to really buy it.
Unless it makes the perfect Christmas gift. Like, say, maybe unveil new AirPods late in the year like that or something.
Or I'm talking January and February. Like I'm
Oh,
talking
that's
that
after.
time. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
talking
and
right
if that's
after
the case, yeah. It's a bad
and,
time to launch stuff.
and it's and you have to consider that not only is it a bad time to launch stuff, but if family members get their loved ones stuff for friends can get their loved ones stuff like let's say new iPhones released every January instead of every September, then you wouldn't want to go out and buy your new relative, your loved one, a brand new iPhone when you know it's about to be replaced.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So
Now,
yeah,
granted,
the
iPhones are
September
usually
timeline is pretty good.
now. Now I think for more financial sense, I think the June timeline would be a little bit better if they went back to that. But that is just my personal preference.
Hmm.
So that way they could cover more ground, more time. But that's just me.
I'm not entirely sure if that would work though, because that's when everyone's blowing money on vacations.
That is actually that's true. I forget that most people travel during the summer.
Yeah, you're not most people. No offense.
I actually do. I actually do plan on going on a long distance road trip sometime in the next few months, though. So
Nice. Yeah, so
it's
far I've been in
not.
the process of Gosh, it's a 1,000-mile road trip there and then 1,000 miles back. Uh,
It's North Carolina for context.
yep. I'm planning a week to take an entire week off, heading to Asheville, North Carolina, hopefully in June. That's when I want to go, sometime in
I
June.
want to go. I want to go to I probably won't live in Asheville, but I do want to go to Asheville someday just to visit, since it's really beautiful there, from what I hear.
It is like I finally met someone who actually has family in Asheville, and so they've traveled to there to see family multiple times, and from what they say, it is beautiful. It actually
Also,
that and the people there, I mean, the thing that I have a slight issue with the demographic of people there for reasons we won't get into, but for the most part, they're actually extremely friendly, I hear.
but getting back on topic to CES on more other stupid things. Here's something else stupid that was unveiled at the event. So there's this new AI startup company called Rabbit, which has announced a new AI handheld.
Next.
Yeah, that's
all I have to say. Next.
Yeah, well, all right. We'll be going to. Well, oh, don't worry. The next topic is just as stupid as as CES, because I don't really know what else is at CES. Windows keyboards will now be getting a dedicated Copilot key.
Two things. One, why bother? And two, next. I don't have a lot of thoughts on
about
this
right.
I wish they would. These companies need to get this whole AI thing out of their heads, because the truth is, it's not as exciting as they think it is.
That's at least Apple is staying mostly out of it, which is good.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not as exciting as you think it is. In fact, the same technology that they're using to power this AI, it's nothing new. It's actually existed for a long time. It is no different than the same software that I use for generating extremely complex programs. It's no different. And this technology has existed for years. This is why I'm not excited about it. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it truly is not. But in other news, this is actually more of a tech story that I have, but I actually well, let me go get it to share this full story. All right, so on my last night, as of recording this podcast, I left my iPhone 14 Pro somewhere, and thought I wouldn't be able to get back for a few days. So because I still needed a phone, I briefly switched to my iPhone 11 Pro Max just so that carried it around all day at school today, just so that way I could still have a phone of some sorts.
I have to ask, how did you do that? Because 14 is eSIM exclusive.
Oh, I didn't actually activate service on this thing because it wasn't worth it. What I simply did was I just logged, because the only place I was going would be at my house, which is obvious, and this phone is obviously connected to my house Wi-Fi and my school, which I can connect to the guest Wi-Fi there. So I just used it like an iPod Touch, like I used to use it back when it was my main phone. But now, Yeah, I didn't actually bother getting service on it. I just used it like an iPod Touch. But that
Mm-hmm.
now I understand from context that you may think that my iPhone 14 Pro was confiscated by my parents, but it was not. I was going. Otherwise, I would have all my iPhones and probably all my other Apple devices taken away.
Yeah, it was just a classic scenario of oops, I forgot my wallet, or I forgot my keys.
Yeah.
Thank
Meanwhile,
God I have an AirTag on both of those things because I have lost both in public before.
the one time, or let me actually, just to continue the story before I tell another anecdote, is that I was briefly going to switch. I ordered a case for my iPhone SE 3 because this iPhone 11 Pro Max is garbage battery life on it. I was going to switch to my SE 3 just so that way I could have a newer phone with a better battery. Even though I know it does not feel like a newer phone. Believe me, you don't have to tell me that. But luckily, my iPhone 14 Pro is now here back in my hands again. So. Oh.
Yep,
The only.
everyone's
The only.
happy.
The only real thing I have to say about using my iPhone 11 Pro Max is that because it still has the old Twitter app on it, I tried to use Twitter on it and it said, "I'm sorry, you can't." And then even though tweets were loading completely fine in the background, I wouldn't let me use it because it said, "Please update to X." That's so annoying.
I hate what Elon's done with the platform.
Yeah.
There are some good things that he's done. I'll give him some credit there. But there's some things that he's done that just did not need to happen.
Like trends on Twitter and like it's actually getting so hard for me to find content tweets from my friends and from my actual online from people that I follow on Twitter or X, to the point where it's becoming so to the point where I'm at, and a lot of the content is just getting that I see is just getting so stupid where I've actually been contemplating leaving X.
Yeah, I know that basically ever since the switch happened, basically my entire profile's been. I mean, we did this whole thing with Tabby where we checked to see if our accounts were ghosted or whatever,
Yeah.
something like that. And
Shall
apparently
I?
it's not, but it certainly feels like it because I assume because Elon's trying to boost profits for the platform, he's trying to place ads in strategic places, and he wants to place them where there's more viral tweets, and where there's more likely to be viral tweets, that's where everything's get. It's basically an algorithm that figures bigger people over smaller people.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
basically what
honest,
it's created.
Yeah, I'm honestly, and if I do, just to be clear, if I leave X, I'm not going to go to Mastodon or Threads or any of those other stupid Twitter clones.
Yeah, I would think you'd probably stick to like YouTube posts because
I'll still use YouTube.
you'll post the exact same thing on both
I
Twitter and YouTube.
I do. I used to post the exact same photos on both my Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube community posts. I used to post the same
Sometimes I
things
find
on
it annoying because I follow both, obviously.
Yeah,
but
I put, but I get such a bigger outreach on. But at this point, Twitter is just becoming more like how Instagram became, and which is just flat out annoying since Instagram, whilst Twitter isn't exactly trying to become TikTok, it's still just annoying what Twitter is trying to do, and I really hope they change it.
yeah,
Algorithm at least.
yeah, the only reason why I'm still on it at this point is because I've happened to have met some people who, despite I'm like a very tiny platform, only 51 followers, actually there are some really big people who will interact with me. Telos of Tech being one of them. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised I managed to get... What? What's going on?
Oh. Crazy Kent from the Computer Clan interacts with my replies to his tweets, and You know the YouTuber Favorite Tech X?
Nope, never heard of him.
He's got I think close to 1 million, if not 1 million, but subscribers. But he actually follows me on Twitter.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
So I've
actually discovered from watching Kyle Connor live stream road tripping from where was it? Fort Collins, Colorado to Austin, Texas to do a Cybertruck filming. I joined the live stream and apparently my name was so familiar to him while he was filming the, I don't want to say short form because it's not short, but his summarized version of a road trip video. In the process of filming that, I think he called me out.
Ooh.
I think I just got called out. I don't know yet because that video has not been uploaded yet, but I might have just been called out in one of his road tripping videos. I am very shocked, though, that he says that I'm a regular on his streams. And the thing is, I'm actually not a regular on his streams. I only tune in on the occasion. But somehow he recognized my name.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. And I've had a lot less interaction with this guy than I have with Drew. So it's what a crazy world we live in. So yeah, I'm still keeping my Twitter for things like that.
If you're still interacted with Talos of Tech, then maybe Kyle Connor knows you from Talos of Tech.
Oh, I don't think he even knows who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, Drew knows who Kyle is, but I don't think Kyle knows who Drew is.
Well, speaking of my anecdote about leaving my iPhone 14 Pro in public, that was in the car. That was a lot in one of my relatives' cars. It was a lot worse than the story I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
Picture this. It's September 2016. I was going into Lowe's with my dad, and because I used to bring my main iPad, then being my iPad 3, everywhere with me at that point, and I didn't want it to get hot in its car because just a month earlier I had left this iPad in the trunk of my car while I was in a movie theater. It overheated, so I still was a little weary about leaving this thing in the car. I took this thing into Lowe's with me, and guess what happened at Lowe's?
Did you drop it and break it?
After this story, I'll tell you the story of how this iPad got cracked. What happened was that I simply left this iPad at Lowe's. And so,
oh dear.
And so once I realized that I was without an iPad, then my parents constantly called Lowe's trying to figure out how to get it, and I'm sure some of the employees were looking for this iPad like crazy. And my mom and at first when Lowe's initially called, they said that the iPad was gone. But then this iPad eventually did turn up, and luckily, and it didn't seem like anybody got into it or anything, which is good. But the Lowe's employee left a note on this iPad saying, "Why did you leave me?" So that was a nice touch. But yeah, and my mom actually and I was gonna get a new iPad for that Christmas anyway. But because I was having constant issues with the 16 gigabytes of storage on this iPad, but my mom actually was almost ready to order me a new iPad just because of That.
Yeah. This is why you don't take a bunch of that. This is why you take as little things into public places as possible.
Yeah, nowadays I no longer bring my iPad with me. In fact, it wasn't after. In fact, after that moment, then I stopped bringing as quite as much tech in with me, which is now why I just literally bring my phone with me everywhere I go.
Kind of drives me
Apple
nuts
Watch.
how. Yeah, it kind of drives me nuts how even on like short trips, parents will hand their little kids in the back seat the tablet, and it's like going to the store or something.
Yeah, that. When I was little, I actually used to get. When I was little, in contrast, I actually used to get mad that I couldn't use. I actually used to use my iPad a lot in the back seat of my car. But backseat of my cars during road trips, and it used to irritate me a lot how my family did not have cars with Wi-Fi back then. Nowadays, though to be fair, it was my own iPad.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly,
Well, iPads had cellular.
None of my iPads ever had cellular. In fact, I only own one cellular iPad in my collection, which is a cellular iPad 1.
That's the one I have.
Yeah, I didn't know that they had cellular iPads at that point, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Though.
Then again, now our cars have built-in Wi-Fi hotspots. Or
I heard about that, and I really
wanted.
I heard about that, and I really, really wanted a car with that, and I still don't think I have a car with that. My family has a car with that, though. I've grown.
I don't think it really became a big thing until like late 2010s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't think it became a big thing until late 2010s. So yeah, probably didn't make that much sense to put Wi-Fi in the cars. And I mean, especially we were used to hotspots and all that, and I guess back then our cars weren't exactly as smart as they are today.
Yeah.
Yeah, my car being from designed in 2017 but manufactured in 2019, I got a Wi-Fi hotspot in my car.
GM was also the first manufacturer to do that, though I still don't think my Mercedes has even my mom's new 2018 Mercedes is the newest car in my family. I don't think even her car has that.
It might. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might, but I know my car definitely doesn't have that, and I doubt my dad's M6 has it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I also know like Honda's Odyssey minivan. This is another value thing about minivans. A lot of them will include the option of in-cabin Wi-Fi. Which makes really total sense in a van.
Yeah, kids aren't going to have their own cellular plans yet.
So it makes sense to give something to tablets. That's the most common thing.
It doesn't make much sense. Now, granted, I understand. Now, granted, I understand that my Mercedes wouldn't have Wi-Fi hotspot because it's from 2014, and I understand that my dad's car doesn't exactly need it because most dads aren't going to.
Tech is not really the focus of that car.
Yeah, tech is not the focus. It's more of a modification and power kind of a car.
Yeah, so yeah, it makes sense that BMW doesn't include it. And to me, I hate the fact that the car industry is trying to move towards subscribing things. Like everyone knows BMW was notorious for this. There is one subscription thing that does make sense because it does actually cost money to keep this going. In-car Wi-Fi or data that does actually cost money to. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm totally fine paying a subscription for that if I want it.
I'm not fine paying a subscription for remote start.
That is dumb. especially up here, because it's freaking cold, and I am always remote starting my car.
Yes.
Now, actually, here's something that is kind of weird. So, where's my keys? I have my keys on me. I know I have my keys on me. I do. So, here's my key. Has the remote start button right here. I can remote start my car for free using this key. However, say the key is not in range, like say I'm on the other side of the house. The car can't find this key then. I can technically do it through the phone, but that requires a subscription.
That you can remote start for a BMW with a normal key, but you can't do both the phone. I believe it requires a subscription.
I think it kind of makes sense because in order for that to work, your phone has to communicate with servers. In order for the car to do that, it needs to be hooked up to cellular. So again, it's like the in-car Wi-Fi thing.
That's more of a... I think that type of app, because it does connect to servers, similar... I think that type of app should be a one-time... That type of feature should be a one-time purchase, since it doesn't cost that much money to run. I mean, it does cost money to run it, but it does not cost that much.
I wouldn't know how much it is, but I mean... I think subscription kind of makes sense, but I would only think it would really make more sense if it was more feature packed or something like that. If you get a better value out of it, like say you have the ability to create a Siri shortcut where you get up in the morning, you're doing your routine, and once this time hits, you typically leave at this time. It already turns the car on, remote starts the car to get the heat going when it's freezing cold outside. So that way, by the time you get in the car is already warm. You did nothing, and you're all set to go.
I like that. That may be worth paying for. However, what is not worth paying for is a subscription for is heated seats.
Totally agree, and everybody else agrees with that. Subscriptions for hardware that exists in the vehicle is stupid. If the product can do it, then you should be able to do it. Like, I hate what's Mercedes' infamous subscription on their electric cars? Some acceleration boost or whatever?
Yes, an acceleration boost.
You've already paid for the motors that are capable of doing it.
Oh, you don't need to
Why do you have to pay a subscription to unlock what you already paid for? This makes no sense to me. If a subscription makes sense, if it requires maintaining infrastructure to power this service, okay? I'm okay with paying a subscription if this is the case. But locking out something that is already in your possession, something that you already paid for, something physical that physically exists, but requires no infrastructure, no software, no communications to run, that does not make sense to me, and I will put my foot down on no. Yeah, that type of subscription literally should be outlawed.
BMW, there's a reason why BMW doesn't charge subscriptions for heated seats in the U.S. or makes it the mandatory, and it's because people in the U.S. with the U.K., they do it in the U.K. and other car markets, which primarily use public transportation, but in the U.S., that would not fly by at all.
Yeah, to me, that is just so anti-consumer. That is hostile to your customers.
People are only going to work hard to find ways to hack a car, jailbreak the car, and basically unlock it anyway.
Yeah.
People are going to find ways around it, and more importantly, what do you do if in 20 years, for example, when your BMW doesn't, subscription probably isn't going to work on that car anymore, but you still want to have heated seats on it. What are you going to do? You'll probably have to jailbreak it anyway, so...
Yeah, I know that some automakers will like to include some things or just for simplifying production, but if that's the case, then just make it a standard equipment.
Yeah.
If you're going to include it anyways, then make it standard equipment. Don't try to cost us down on this. Okay? If we end up paying for it, fine. But making us forced to subscribe to, if we want to use it, just because you wanted to simplify production, no, that is hostile. That is so anti-consumer, and you will never win my sympathy for if lawsuits like that happens. So I hope I made it clear where subscriptions make sense.
Yes, you did.
So yeah, it is an annoying thing in the car industry, and Tesla is sort of guilty on this, but for the most part, the majority of their software locking is one-time purchase.
That's a lot
So
better
things
than a constant
like
subscription.
Yeah, so things like heated rear seats, I believe, in the standard range Model 3, by default, I think you have to pay an additional fee to activate them, but once you pay that one-time fee, that's it. You can use them anytime you want. And I disagree that heated rear seats like that, if they're already there, you should be able to use them lickety-split like that and not have to pay Tesla money for that. Because, again, you bought the car with the hardware. Let me use it. And then the weird thing, which I recommend nobody ever pay either subscription or full price for this feature, full self-driving.
Oh, yes.
It is not worth $12,000.
No, it is not.
If you want to try it, go ahead. This is where I think maybe the subscription makes sense, but only for the first month. After the first month, doesn't make sense. Because what is it monthly, like 200
for FSD?
They offer it as an option. They prefer you to buy it outright. They prefer you to pay $12,000 for FSD outright. But they do have an optional subscription model for those of us who don't want to pay 5 figures for software that claimed to be fully functional how many years ago now?
Yeah.
Too many.
All right. Well, speaking of... Well, we went a little bit off topic, though we only have one more topic to cover, and then we'll be good.
I guess so. All right, what is it?
So the dynamic island is, unlike in the last room when we said that the iPhone 16 Pro would have a smaller dynamic island, it is unfortunately not going to start syncing until the iPhone 17 Pro.
Oh, so the Face ID sensors are still going to be protruding through the display?
Yeah, everything will it'll still be just like on the iPhone 14 Pro, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro. And 15.
You know, I think when it comes to a lot of people being disappointed about Apple being late to things, I think the majority of people forget about part of the iPhone's design, and the part being that it needs to be scalable.
You know, you also have to keep in mind with Apple that most other phone makers don't offer Face ID systems, face unlocking systems as precise as Face ID.
I wish they did. I wish that they did.
Apple World has it patented, so they can't.
Google's tried something that doesn't use Apple's technology at all. And actually, you could not trick it with a standard photo. So, yeah, Google tried this with the Pixel 4. I believe they were using radar for 3D mapping, I believe. Something like that. But they abandoned it with the Pixel 5.
That was back in the dark days of the Pixel.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Oh, that was when I really gave Google crap for their phones because they just
I
could not
remember your
make a
videos when
smartphone.
you ranted on the Pixel.
Yep. And they deserved it back for the at least the first 5 pixels. They all deserved every bit of hate they got. But I do have to admit the Pixel 6 really was a game changer. And it was not because Google decided to switch processors. It was because this was the first time Google actually put cares and effort into making a smartphone. And so ever since then, we've been seeing a great trend. And actually, I'm still looking for a potential Android phone to add for reviewing Android because, again, I've been away from Android for so long now, and I've kind of forgotten about what's been going on in the history of Android ever since. Gosh, when did I leave Android? 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Geez, that long ago. Yeah, I'm a bit out of date on what's been going on in the with Android at least, and I kind of want to stay up to date because I need to keep myself in check. I just can't become this biased sheep towards Apple. Otherwise, well, at that point, what value does my opinion have? If I only know half the story. So I like to focus on both sides of the story, and as of right now, I know a lot of what's going on the Apple side of things, but Android, not so much.
To be fair, I've never used Android, and people still seem to care about my opinion. So, or I've never used it as my main operating system.
Yeah.
Though I
I mean,
guess
it's really not the worst operating system in the world.
I actually like Android, but the reason why I don't use Android on my main operating system is because, number one, Android phone manufacturers have gotten so boring to the point where why even bother?
I know, right?
And number two, the main reason isn't necessarily because of Android, but the main reason is why I stick with Apple is because I need to have a Mac.
Yep.
Like,
I still don't know how Marquez does the Pixel and Mac thing.
I can't. Yeah, I need to have a Mac. I need to have a Mac because otherwise it won't. Because Windows is too unstable. Chrome OS doesn't do enough of the work that I need it to.
And Linux. Well, have you toyed around with Linux at all?
I installed it. The very, very basic Linux, like literally just a command line Linux on my Chromebook, but otherwise that's it.
Yeah. So far I only have Linux on my Raspberry Pi here. So.
Didn't you do? I'm guessing you uninstalled it from your MacBook.
I only saved the operating system to a flash drive, though I don't even know where that flash drive went at this point. Though I don't even know if it would run on. I don't even think it would actually run on this MacBook because to my knowledge, what I downloaded was more in line designed for x86 technology, while this is ARM.
Oh, well, that was your.
So I don't even think it would run if I plugged it in.
But no, I think you said you did it on your current MacBook.
Not this one, no. I did it on the iMac. That's where I downloaded and installed it on. Yeah, never the MacBook.
Yeah, you said. Yeah, I thought all this time you did it on your MacBook, on your main MacBook.
Nope, I did it on the iMac. Back when Macs actually allowed you to install more than one operating system.
Yeah, it's such a shame that you had to buy a separate XPS just to use Windows.
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, Apple still wants to do this. The problem is, well, nobody else is making a relatively decent ARM version of their operating systems. Other than Chrome OS. Then again, it's Chrome OS. You can't do squat with it.
Like, you might... Everything on Chrome OS is compatible with Mac OS, so...
Yeah. Because all it is just download Google Chrome. Oh, boom! So, yeah, that's my experience with Linux. Just, for the most part, it's now on the Raspberry Pi as I'm still trying to figure out how to... Gosh, I can't... I understand M&G code just fine, because that's what I do for CNC machine programming, but Python... It doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense.
Well, unfortunately, I can't help you there because I don't know anything about computer programming.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's why I've been focusing on just obtaining the hardware for that project I'm working on. I'm actually waiting on a CCS plug to come in.
Well, I guess another important news topic. We're out of topics.
I guess I can come up with a few random things to keep this going. Did you see MKBHD's camera awards or something like that?
No, I don't. I rarely watch MKBHD.
I thought you might have watched that one. I actually really hate it when he uploads those videos.
How come?
What do you think are some of the key, most important things that would make a smartphone camera the best, that would make a camera the best camera?
Simply the way it looks. That's it.
Well, I was going to refer to other things like the pictures that it takes or the videos it takes or something like that. Because I hate it when Android users make this argument. They all will claim Pixel camera is best camera in a smartphone. And I've said this time and time again. And Marquez, I hate it when he makes these videos because all he does is fuel this. Meanwhile, he's completely forgetting literally half of what our smartphone cameras are capable of in these camera tests, best camera phone tests.
That goes back to your video on how annoying camera snobs are.
I know, right? But he also he never even bothers to mention video.
Oh.
And that is something that no Android phone can ever top Apple at. He never bothers to mention that in those videos. Wait. And yet, he still says Pixel has best camera on a smartphone. Hey, look by your survey. Pixel has best camera on a smartphone still.
That's because most of his audience are camera snobs. But more importantly, Marquez should care about video quality because he's a YouTuber.
And he literally uses an iPhone for one of his channels, as long as he's not testing another Android phone for testing purposes. But again, he uses primarily an iPhone.
Yes, he doesn't even... Oh, good Lord, Mark.
Yeah, when he's not testing a camera, he takes his iPhone out to shoot video.
I don't test...
Sometimes even for pictures because it's what he has with them. And, he grabbed the iPhone. Well, it's not the Pixel, but you know what? Okay, fine. It's a quick picture. We all know the iPhone does extremely well. In fact, actually, I believe the iPhone came in first place for their portrait mode, actually. So
yeah, iPhones have really good cameras, and on top of all that, it's just good. I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, the point is, Apple cares about the whole feature set with the camera. That's what they focus on. And no, maybe it gets one category slightly different. But again, it's so slight, nobody cares. It's still a great camera at the end of the day.
Apple's even shooting their own events with an iPhone 15 Pro now.
Oh, I wish he would have pointed that out in that best camera video. He should have.
Oh, and
name one other Android smartphone maker who has actually produced an amazing event and completely fooled the audience.
I did. I record all my YouTube videos on my iPhone 14 Pro now.
I record all my videos on iPhones too, be it the 13 Pro Max or the XS Max. In fact, last I checked, you guys can't tell the difference whenever I'm using which phone.
I can't tell footage difference between the iPhone XS and the iPhone 13 series. I can't tell a footage difference.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the SE, I can't tell. I can tell a footage difference between my. Now once you get to the 14 series, then I'm not sure about the 15 series, but once you get to the 14 series, it looks a little different, so I can tell the difference.
That's because they changed the sensor. That was the first time where they actually changed the sensor. That's why we can tell a difference. But between a 10S and a 13, you can't tell the difference because they're literally using the same sensor.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, and you know what I record all my videos with before I got my iPhone 14 Pro? Or almost all of
them. You did it with an 11 Pro and before that, an 8 Plus.
An 11 Pro Max and an iPhone 8 Plus, yes. And
those aren't bad cameras. They still hold up today.
And even back when my iPhone 8 Plus was my main phone, I still recorded some YouTube videos with my iPhone. My mom's iPhone 11 Pro Max. Now, granted, the ones on my iPhone 11 Pro Max and my iPhone 8 Plus haven't aged so amazingly because, especially in the later videos that I recorded on my 11 Pro Max, it developed the microphone started having issues when it would annoyingly crackle in my videos. So that's an annoying thing, but that's a hardware defect. And on my iPhone 8 Plus, which again is probably because it's cracked on the back, so it's probably damaged. The autofocus is really bad. Autofocus is really bad on my iPhone 8 Plus. So as a result, some of my videos and those shots don't age quite as well either. And some of my,
it drives me nuts.
Microphone quality isn't the best, but they still.
It drives me nuts how
watchable.
Marquez makes these videos. It drives me nuts how he makes these videos claiming, "See, guys, Pixel has best camera smartphone," and he only pays attention to 1/2 of what our cameras are capable of. It is so misleading.
In fact, sometimes I actually go back and watch the Apple Buyer's older YouTube videos from 2016 when he was first actually trying out on YouTube, and he recorded his videos back then off an iPhone 6, and they're still completely watchable today. Now, granted, I can tell the difference in camera quality between an iPhone 6 and an iPhone 15 Pro. I can, but the iPhone 6 still produces watchable and the 5S even. They still produce watchable footage.
Yeah. Yeah, it just... I don't know why he does this. It is so misleading. It is so dishonest to his fan base. Why does he do this? I really wish he would evaluate the other half of what our phones are capable of, and he never does.
Like when if he changed the title to where it be Smartphone Photo Camera Award, camera photos, then that would be the proper title.
Then that would be a proper title, and that would be correctly advertising what's going on, and maybe the camera snobs would be rather slow to point out how amazing the camera on their phones are because, well, they're only evaluating half of what they're capable of. That's fine.
Like, when I did my iPhone 7 retrospective, I initially titled it the iPhone 7 years later just because I thought, why not? However, Elias from Meowtech actually commented, "This is more of an iPhone. That video was more of an iPhone 7 launch recap rather than an actual video seeing how it was 7 years later." So you know what I did? That was back in September that I made that video, but you know what I did?
You changed the title to more accurately represent what it was?
Yes, I changed the title to just simply be the iPhone 7.
Mm-hmm.
So that way it would just be about the phone itself rather than how it's doing years later. And, and it's just... Now, granted, MKBHD probably doesn't understand comments like that, as he probably does get comments like that on his videos like that, but...
Yeah, it's very disingenuous.
Is so big while I am still a small YouTuber, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very disingenuous. And for a channel his size, like, Linus found out the hard way with LTT. What happens when you're not being transparent with your audience? He found out the hard way.
He lost a ton
and he got called out hard for it. Yeah, he lost a lot of respect from a lot of people, even from some of his own colleagues, from other YouTubers in the same space that technically compete with him. But at the end of the day, they're all friends. He even lost their respect. So he found out the hard way what happens when you're not being honest and with your audience. So, yeah, it kind of makes me upset that MKBHD is kind of not getting these repercussions too, because this is very disingenuous and is creating a very, I don't want to say negative fan base, because technically his fan base still loves him, but negative to other communities' fan base is probably how I want to put it.
Yeah, that would be a proper way to describe. That'd be a proper way to describe that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's like the androids who want iMessage so bad. They go out to mock why the iPhones suck and why their androids are better and why they should have iMessage and why they deserve it and such. Kind of that mentality. So, yeah, I really wanted to bring this up because I think somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to say it. And I wish he would be more open and about this aspect. And I need to find a way to see if I can reach out to him directly. Problem is, he's huge. He probably gets like a gazillion DMs all the time. And because I'm a nobody, who would listen to me?
Well, but, you know how Linus Tech Tips initially got called out?
It's their Gamers Nexus, actually.
Yeah. And I believe Gamers Nexus is a much smaller creator than Linus Tech Tips, or at least he was at that time.
Yeah, but actually he still has a relatively large following. Like, I recall in 2022, at the beginning of 2022, he had an issue where Newegg essentially tried to scam him out of $500.
I remember that from that episode of the Random Alpha podcast.
Yeah, and the only way he got his money back and brought this whole issue up, he has a large enough following that Newegg realized, yeah, not a good idea to screw this guy over. We need to fix something here. So yeah, Gamers Nexus actually already had a big following, but I love the way he reports. I love the way he reports and does his reviews. I don't like to watch his reviews all the time because it's mostly PC hardware, which I don't really care that much about PC hardware these days. But he scripts his reviews so well, and he's great when it comes to giving data analysis. But also, the biggest things that I love watching him for is when he does pieces on, be it companies, be it Newegg and the whole scandal there, or Artesian Builds. What happened on that live stream evidently was not what brought the downfall of Artesian Builds. Apparently, they were financially doomed from the beginning, thanks to the CEO. And then how he's also addressed Linus. And I think he did an amazing job addressing the situation while not being a total jerk about it.
like what you did back in November of 2021 when I made a video about how Macs are way too expensive.
Yeah.
You actually made a response video, and that's how I realized I was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, no hard feelings, but I thought it would be a good idea to point that out for the better of, well, everyone. So, yeah, it's hard to give criticism. It really is, and I think I am one of the worst people to do it because I try not to come across this way, but oftentimes I just come across as being mean and harsh. I mean, if you watch my Windows 11 video, you definitely would know that what I'm like when I'm giving extreme criticism, but
one time
I don't do it just to trash on people. I do it because I want to see improvement.
Yeah,
I don't wish failure upon anyone.
One time last semester when I was in school, my reading teacher assigned us some homework that I thought was unnecessary, and I told her, "Hey, I think this homework is unnecessary," and she got immediately mad at me for that.
Yeah, sometimes criticism is going to come tough and hard, and it's going to knock you down. But a big problem that I think a lot of people have is trying to filter the difference between criticism and just flat out bullying.
Oh, yes.
Because sometimes it can come across as that.
Yeah, sometimes I understand that too.
I'm lucky that I don't really delete that many comments anymore. And the reason for it is because, for one, sometimes there's just criticisms that I gotta take. And yeah, sometimes it sucks. Sometimes it's annoying when it's repeated because I know it's an issue. It's just I don't have the finances to address it at the moment. But again, I might be new to them. They don't know my situation. So I don't try to be a jerk and say, this comment's mean, get rid of that. I only do it when it's either just flat out harassment to the point where it could endanger somebody or extend to the point of cyberbullying, because last I checked, cyberbullying is still illegal.
Yeah, I do. What I usually count as blocking comments is, for example, if some, like, when I started talking really, really fast in my scripted videos, a lot of people hated that, and I got a lot of hate and I got a lot of criticism about that, but I reverted back. I started talking slower, and now everybody understands my videos with no problem.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of people struggle to tell the difference between criticism and bullying. Criticism is there for the wishing of improvement. Not that you want to see someone fail, but you want to see them improve for the better of everybody. And then bullying is literally just tearing someone down for the sake of tearing someone down. And that is not okay. It's just a lot of people struggle to tell the difference between bullying and criticism.
That, like a criticism of Apple would be, hey, Apple should allow iMessage to be on more platforms besides iOS, macOS, and watchOS. However,
another criticism we give them all the time, their color options.
Yeah. However, flat out bullying would
they flat out suck.
Apple's just a mean old company because they're a greedy corporation, and it's okay to steal from them because they're bad.
Yep.
Totally not parodying it. Totally not representing anything that's going on now with a certain company called Beeper. Definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm being very sarcastic in case you can't tell.
Yep. Oh yeah, jeez. There's just some people that are absolutely crazy. I got flipped off for the first time on the road today.
What for?
So to give you context, on my daily commute to and from work, I have to drive by through two four-way stops, and on each of those intersecting streets is a school zone. There's the elementary school on one street. You go up the next street, then there's the high school. So there's two different school zones in within these four-way stops. So I happened to have left work early today because there wasn't much for me to do after I finished what I needed to. So I left work early today, and I was driving through when school got out. And I get it. It's hectic to go through there because there's the two four-way stops, and that's when traffic gets really backed up. But it was my turn to go through the four-way stop where the elementary school is. And somebody completely decided, nope, we're not going to stop. They were going to blow straight through that intersection as I was taking my turn to drive through the four-way stop.
So that's the guy that flipped you off?
Yeah, it was actually it was a mom with two, looked like second graders from what I could tell by looking in the windows. But a mom with two young kids from the elementary school trying to blow through that intersection as I was driving through. She slammed on her brakes so she didn't hit me, but she gave me a big, giant...
That's not okay. First of all, what kind of parent would do that with their little kids in the car when they
I know, that is...
There was one...
I felt so bad for the kids, and...
For...
Oh, that wasn't even the only case of bad driving I saw from her.
Well, what was another case?
Two more. Second case, heading down towards the highway, right before we got there, passes me on the shoulder.
I see that issue so constantly. And in fact, in one of my local highways, they actually had to put signs up that say explicitly, "Do not pass on shoulder."
You want to know what's on the shoulder?
What?
On that particular stretch?
What?
Bike lane.
Oh, that's especially stupid.
Yep.
He's lucky he didn't go to jail.
I actually had to watch
prison.
two people jump out of the way because it's not just a bike lane. Also, that's where people walk up and down the hill. But, yeah. And then the final thing, quick trivia question. When turning left onto a road with more than one lane, which lane do you take?
Depends on which lane you want.
Wrong. There is a correct answer to this, and you will get pulled over if you don't choose the right one.
Left lane?
Yes. When turning left, unless there are markings that go across the intersection, say there's two different left turn lanes like that, unless you have that instance, if there's only one left turn lane, you turn into the leftmost lane available to you.
I don't. Oh, I don't. That they actually my state. I don't believe they do not regulate that in my state.
They might. But I have seen people get pulled over for that.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody really get pulled over for that. And in my state, the main reason why I like to go into the right lane unless there's specific markings is because the left lane is an intended passing lane, and it's a lot harder and a lot less safe to pass people on the right, to use the left lane as a regular travel lane. So unless I need to travel onto the left lane for something, even if it's just on a regular street, I just follow the same etiquette for interstates, and I go into the right lane.
Do you know why though? Do you know why you will get pulled over for this, especially in my state? Do you know why? In fact, I've experienced this way too many times.
How come?
In this instance, you are completely ignoring traffic from the other side of the road that might be turning right, which in this case they would turn into the rightmost lane. I have had too many scenarios where it was a very close call. Too many times have I made my left turn, but the guy across the street was actually turning into the left lane. And vice versa. I have had scenarios where I was turning right, I turned right into the right lane, but somebody coming who was making a left turn was turning left into the right lane.
Oh.
This is why you don't do that.
My state actually has a different setup, so that way this can't happen. So in my state what they usually do is they usually do in most of my area, and is that what they do is that they make it to where only the opposing traffic can turn right when the left turn signal is on. So that's completely safe. So that's completely safe in my area, because otherwise
you're referring to protected left turns, right?
Yeah. And protected
there
left
are
turns.
scenarios but there are scenarios where you don't get a protected left turn. And this intersection is that case. Yeah.
My intersection always usually intersections that are that big. Usually intersections in my area that have that many lanes, usually you do get protected left turns. That they have the left turn yield on green things, lights, so you don't always get
but
protected
still,
left
I recommend not doing that, because again, I have had too many close calls because of this. It would actually be safer to still turn into the left lane, and then when it's safe, make that lane change into the right lane. That is that if people were to follow this, we could probably reduce so many accidents that happen at intersections. And again, I've experienced, I can't even keep track how many, I don't have enough fingers to count how many times this has happened to me.
And when you're turning right, and it's the response, and in at least from what I do, it's always the response. I always check for people to do that anyway. So it's the people that turn right that usually retain their responsibility to make sure that no one's turning, as that's just a basic move in defensive driving.
Yep, still, it's just not a good idea to do that. So for safety reasons, please don't do that anymore. Because
I really don't. There's also another again, even bigger safety risk that I actually have. Also in my city, I have big semi trucks going through my town, so I can't exactly. So it's very hard for me to change lanes. So now I kind of have to. So I kind of have to pick a lane and stay with it. So I actually don't get that much of a choice. But
yeah, again, the thing when driving in town though, the passing lane kind of. I usually actually drive in the passing lane in town for only one reason. Because most of the time you'll get slowed down in the right lane due to everybody turning off to go into whatever store is off the street. And the passing lane there being passing all the people who are slowing down to turn into the stores, or people who are getting on the road turning out of the stores. That's how I use the left lane. In town, at least. Once I leave town, then I head back to the right lane.
I don't. That's not driving. There's a lot of driving moves that I hate, but I don't consider turning left into the right turn lane a major. I do not consider that a big.
Believe me, it is a huge problem. I've been too many close calls to the point where I have no more fingers left to even count. And be advised, in some areas, you will get pulled over for that.
Yeah, I know now when I drive in Michigan.
That is
I
technically
will
a
do
traffic
that.
violation.
I'll do that, and I'll remember to do that if I go to Michigan
It's not just Michigan that does that, by the way.
or other states that regulate it.
I do it all the time because, again, it is technically a traffic violation. So,
Yeah, I don't.
yeah,
This
you
is
might
too-
have the
this is
benefit
too
that you get
goofy.
protected left turns at the majority of your intersections, but there are some places where that is not the case, and just doing that is not smart. So, but yeah, the last thing that I was going to point out about that crazy driver was turned right, well, no, turned left into the right lane instead of the left.
Now, was that a four-way stop or was that a traffic light?
No, this was at a traffic light, and this traffic light does have a protected left turn, but not for the road not for the street that we were on. There are some traffic lights that only have protected lefts for two different sides of the street. So, like in this case, it was turning onto the highway. That's why. The highway gets the protected left, but the street that we were turning off of doesn't.
Yeah, that.
So yeah, I hope everybody learned something today. Do not merge. Do not merge. Do not turn into the right lane if you're turning left, and do not turn into the left lane if you're turning right. It is very unsafe.
It's a stupid rule and it's not unsafe. Alrighty. I was just whispering that's a stupid rule.
It is not. You're arguing with safety in this case?
I'm not. I am arguing with safety in my case too, because because it is not safe. It's not safe to turn into the left lane. It's not. It's not safe.
It's perfectly safe.
Eh.
It is perfectly safe.
I've done plenty of driving, so most of the time though when I do turn. However, often to make it, if it makes you feel better, oftentimes in my city, oftentimes when I'm driving in town, first of all, I usually completely avoid part of my downtown where semi-tracks are really bad, so I don't even bother with that. Though even when I do turn onto some roads then I'm often in the left lane because the right lane eventually ends, and because I need to turn to get into my house. However, if I'm going directly south of my house, then I usually will get on the right lane just because it eventually that's too many details, but then I'm going to go out of town, so I do have to be in the right lane for that. With semis,
I just want to point something out. You said that, oh, you've been driving for a while. I've been driving for a few more years than ya.
All right. All drivers who tune into TIFP can feel free to argue about this in the comments below. I'm actually interested.
I have a pretty good feeling I'm going to win. Yeah, it's not safe to do that, and I hate it when people do that.
There's a lot of things that drive there. I've also pointed out that I've been a passenger of my dad for several years, and there's a lot of things in safety that annoy. There's a lot of unsafe things that tactics that drivers make that make in fear that he does not like at all, such as pulling out in front of somebody and not making a good stop, and stopping going when it's not your turn.
Yep.
Running stoplights. Speeding on roads when you
bad.
really shouldn't speed. Going way too.
You can only do that if traffic's actually going that speed.
Going My dad does do it if the traffic's going that speed, though. Going out of traffic flow when it's dangerous, that really irritates him. Like on country roads, when people speed, that really irritates him.
Yeah. Speed limits exist for a reason, guys. Follow them.
In my state, speed limits seem to exist just to rack up tickets, since speed limits are stupidly low in my state.
Oh, dude, the speed limit on the highways around here is like 55.
You have better speed limits than I. You have better speed limits than I do. Trust me. In some parts, and
how you have expressways
on the interstates in my area, you can only go 70 miles an hour at the most. And there's only I believe
that's way faster than 55.
There's only, and mind you, on many interstates in other states, you can go 75, 80, or in some cases even 85 miles an hour.
That's still faster than 55 miles an hour.
And there's a lot of roads that are just as isolated as the roads up in the UP that have 65 miles an hour speed limits that have 55 at the most. There's very few. Most of the roads that are 65 miles an hour in my area are most controlled access highways in my state don't even have 65 mile an hour limits. Most of them restrict to 55.
Hey, the final, how many miles is it to Copper Harbor? The final stretch on US 41, that's a 45.
Is there a lot of space in that area though? Because if there's not a lot of room, then 45 is fair.
Actually, I think it's because it's so twisty and turny and hilly.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I get, like, I'm tall, but there's actually some roads that are perfectly safe to have higher speed limits, but don't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's real. Especially because there's some roads out in the country that only have 40 mile an hour speed limits when they really should have higher speed limits.
They're probably back roads at that point.
It's not this. There's even one main highway that has a 40 mile an hour speed limit as you're out of town. That was literally built only. That was probably lowered only to make sure that people can get speeding tickets.
So just so you guys are aware, we decided to cut the podcast here short just a little bit because we started rambling off on a few more personal things that should not be mentioned, and it was basically for quite literally 2 hours. I kid you not, the entire footage that I was editing today was about 3 hours long. That's how long this show went. And Tabby did eventually join in 2 hours into the show. And again, we didn't really talk much about news or anything. It was just a lot of personal stuff. So, yeah, not really much else for you guys to know at this point. So without further ado, yeah, we're just going to end the show right here. Hope you enjoyed it.
Unless for some reason
I do have to go, though, unfortunately. So we're going to have to end this right here. In fact, we're going to even have to end this without me saying anything else because I got to go feed dogs. So can you guys end the show without me?
I have to. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the iTunes Fanboy Podcast. As always, I'm Tay Maggart from the iTunes Fanboy. And we're saying goodbye for now because I actually have to go do some stuff too.